In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 college football games happening on September 30th, 2023, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 2 picks for each game, 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 college football games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. South Carolina versus Tennessee. Number 21 Tennessee and South Carolina are embarking on another chapter of their Southeastern Conference rivalry as they continue their journeys in the Southeastern Conference East. The Vols kicked off their conference season with a shock loss to Florida, leaving them dreaming of the days of 2022. Meanwhile, the Gamecocks managed to keep the mighty Georgia Bulldogs on their toes, even though they ultimately succumbed in the second half and followed it up with a victory over Mississippi State last week. With the 42nd meeting of these 2 teams on the horizon, the Vols currently hold the historical edge over the Gamecocks, but South Carolina aims to replicate their impressive win from last year when they triumphed 63-38, setting the stage for what promises to be another Southeastern Conference East shootout. The Gamecocks split their first 4 games, but both of their losses were to ranked opponents. They are playing well offensively, and they have one of the best passing attacks in the country. Even though the Volunteers have done a good job defending the pass, they haven't been as good against the run, giving up over 139 rushing yards per game at home. So expect the Gamecocks to follow Florida's blueprint in this game by keeping the ball on the ground and picking up big plays with the play-action pass. The Volunteers haven't given up a lot of points this season, but they gave up 29 points in their only game against a good team, so expect them to have a hard time slowing down the Gamecocks in this game. The Volunteers have won 3 of their last 4 games, but most of the competition they have faced hasn't been very good. They had the 9th best ground game in the country, and they were able to run roughshod over Virginia, Austin Peay, and UTSA, but their running game was kept in check by the Gators, who held them to 100 rushing yards on 3.3 yards per carry. Spencer Rattler has historically performed better against average defenses, and Tennessee's defense, while statistically decent, has faced relatively weaker opponents, making it somewhat unproven against tougher competition. Rattler's experience in big games, which has led to wins against AP top 25 teams in the past, adds to South Carolina's confidence in keeping the game within the 2-touchdown margin in Knoxville. The Gamecocks are also 4-2-0 against the spread on the road since Rattler showed up on campus. This suggests that Rattler's ability to rise to the occasion and South Carolina's past successes in challenging matchups. With the Gamecocks holding opponents under 130 rushing yards per game, the Volunteers will have a hard time moving the ball on the ground and will struggle offensively in this game. The Tennessee Volunteers are the more talented, balanced team and should be decent-sized favorites at home. However, South Carolina has a star quarterback who has the Gamecocks 8th in passing offense, and that gives them a fighting chance each time they take the field. Also, South Carolina beat Tennessee last year by dropping 63 points on its head. The Gamecocks also went toe-to-toe with Georgia on the road and played a ranked UNC team in the opening week, so this is a battle-tested group early. This could be a competitive Southeastern Conference showdown, so the South Carolina Gamecocks to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Tennessee is not the same offensively this year as it was last year, as the Volunteers are averaging 11 less points and over 60 less yards per game in 2023. A lot of that has to do with the change in quarterback, as Joe Milton has not replicated Hendon Hooker's success as a passer in this offense. In fact, Milton has a PFF passer grade of 67.4 compared to Hooker's 85.3 last season, and accumulates 2.3 less yards per pass attempt than Hooker did. Because of the unreliability of Milton's arm, the Vols will likely rely more and more on its rushing attack, which ranks 12th in expected points added per rush according to CFB graphs. Unfortunately for the Vols, the Gamecocks are much better against the run than they are the pass, which is the opposite of how they performed in 2022. This season, South Carolina ranks 14th in opposing expected points added per rush and gives up 3.43 yards per attempt, which sits in the top 50. While the Tennessee offense has regressed this year, its defense has has gotten better. The Vols are currently a top 30 defense according to PFF with a top 7 mark in both pass rush and coverage. That could be trouble for Spencer Rattler and the Gamecocks, who lack a reliable rushing attack thus far and will be without their best target in Antwane Wells Jr. in this game. The Gamecocks are averaging 29 points per game and 14 points per game on the road. They averaged 37 points per game in their last 3 games against the Volunteers. With Tennessee giving up 13 points per game at home, the Gamecocks will be held under their average in this game. The Volunteers are averaging 35 points per game and 39.5 points per game at home. They averaged 38 points per game in their last 3 games against the Gamecocks. With South Carolina giving up 24 points per game on the road, the Volunteers won't score enough points to push the score past the total. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. Notre Dame versus Duke. This Saturday's matchup between number 18 Duke and number 10 Notre Dame bringing this level of excitement is for football, not the usual basketball. Notre Dame, fresh from a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State that came down to the final play, is now relying on Sam Hartman to keep their playoff hopes alive with a perfect end to the season. On the other side of the field, Duke is reveling in a 4-0 start, a feat they haven't achieved since 2018, with their monumental victory over Clemson serving as the season's defining moment. Guided by the talented Riley Leonard, the Blue Devils are looking to continue their impressive run. Adding to the anticipation, ESPN's College Game Day will be broadcasting live from Durham, NC that morning for the first time ever. This is about as tough of a hangover spot as you can find on the board this week, as Notre Dame was just one play away from knocking off Ohio State in front of the entire college football world before suffering a demoralizing loss on the final play of the game. You have to think it would be impossible for the stench of that loss to dissipate in just a few days for a team that had college football playoff aspirations. Fast forward to this week and now the Irish will have to hit the road for a primetime game against a Duke team that is firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball and looks like a serious contender in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Therefore, it's no coincidence that this line has already come down from 6.5, and I expect it to eventually dip to 5 or even 4.5 by kickoff on Saturday. Notre Dame's recent loss has left them wounded and perhaps vulnerable, playing just 10 men on the last 2 plays of the game becoming a national embarrassment. To add insult to injury for the Irish bettors, Notre Dame has won to 3-0 against the spread following a loss under Marcus Freeman. Duke shouldn't be underestimated. With a formidable defense, a veteran quarterback, and a well-balanced offensive approach, all the Blue Devils have done this year is win and look impressive in doing so. And I'm not sure that stops this week. Duke's offense has an extremely high floor that I expect the Blue Devils to succeed, even against a stout Notre Dame front 7. Riley Leonard has the poise and presence to succeed in big games, and I also can't discount what Mike Elko has done with this defense. The Blue Devils are 4th in opponent expected points added per game, 7th in opponent expected points added per pass, and 10th in net points per drive this season. This includes an excellent performance against Clemson, so I don't think the step up in class this week will intimidate this experienced group. Elko formerly coached at Notre Dame, so you know that this game is personal to him. Beyond that, I trust Elko much more in this spot than Marcus Freeman, who struggled mightily toward the end of the game against the Buckeyes, even as Ryan Day tried his hardest to lose that contest. This is pretty easily the biggest game for Duke in a decade. While it might seem like a potential trap, Duke's ability to exploit Notre Dame's vulnerabilities and their historical success as underdogs at home makes them a compelling choice in this matchup. Going with the Blue Devils appears to be a shrewd move, particularly when considering their impressive track record as home underdogs under head coach Mike Elko, boasting a perfect 3-0 against the spread record. So the Duke Blue Devils to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. We know about Notre Dame's defensive prowess at this point in the season. The Irish are 6th in opponent passing success rate, 5th in opponent expected points added per pass, 9th in opponent expected points added per rush, and 17th in net points per drive per college football data. They'll have their work cut out for them against Leonard and this excellent Blue Devils offense. But as the game against Clemson showed, Duke did struggle against an elite defensive front. I expect that to continue here, and the same can be said for this Irish offense struggling to finish drives against a Duke defense that is a lot better than public perception would suggest. Elko is elite at scheming on the defensive side of the ball and I'd expect him to have spent the last few weeks prepping for Sam Hartman and company. Notre Dame has one of the best defenses in the nation, allowing just 13 points per game. Their pass defense ranks 6th in the nation, and Duke is 87th in passing. The Blue Devils will have to run the ball a lot in this one, and that will keep the clock rolling. They will also look to shorten the game with the run. Notre Dame has a potent passing game, but Duke is 3rd against the pass, so I will look for the Irish to also run the ball plenty, and that is not a bad thing for them as they do have a strong ground game. Duke's defense has shown the ability to apply pressure, a potential concern for Notre Dame's Sam Hartman, who tends to struggle when facing chaos in the pocket. Additionally, under head coach Mike Elko, Duke has seen the under-hit in games against ranked opponents with a 0-2-0 record. These factors suggest that this game could indeed be a defensive battle. Both of these teams have put up their fair share of points this year, but I don't see a high-scoring affair in this one. Given the recent strong defensive performances from both teams and their preparations for what appears to be a defensive struggle, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Charlotte versus SMU. The SMU Mustangs play host to the Charlotte 49ers in an American Athletic Conference showdown on Saturday afternoon from Gerald J. Ford Stadium. The 49ers have started slow this season, with their lone win coming against a football championship subdivision foe. For SMU, they've impressed in all their games. Despite the results, they'll know that they have to start of American Athletic Conference play with a bang. These two have never squared off, and while SMU will be favored, Charlotte has the staff that will have their guys ready to give it their best effort. SMU will certainly win this game, but bringing a 2-2 record into this one shows some of their struggles over the first month of the season. The dual threat ability of Jones at quarterback for the 49ers aligns with the type of player that has given the Mustangs problems in their 2 losses this season. Beyond that, Charlotte's defense looked up to the challenge against Florida on the road last week, and while SMU remains tough, the 49ers are growing together on both ends. The Mustangs could be without their running back again in this one, which was an issue last week. In a game where controlling the clock will be key, an abundance of running can be expected. Don't get me wrong, I think SMU wins this game, and I was initially leaning towards SMU if this line would have been shorter, but I just don't know if SMU can cover this number. Charlotte's been competitive for the most part and haven't had their doors blown off this season, losing by 18 against a good Maryland team and by 16 against a Georgia State team that's unbeaten through week 4. With the clock running and the ball staying on the ground as both teams look to set the tone, winning by 24 points seems like it could be a challenge. So the Charlotte 49ers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both of these teams will want to control the clock and set the tone for this American Athletic Conference opener, as SMU is content to try to run the ball all over Charlotte. For the 49ers, the lack of strong passing has been a struggle, but it's no shock that Jones has been dominant as a rusher. It should be expected that Charlotte will want to slow this game down, much like they did against Florida last week. In that game, they allowed only 22 points, a number that they know they can match this weekend. For SMU, they hope to have their running back in the fold, and when out last week, they shifted away from the ground game early. That proved to be a mistake and one that the Mustangs won't make in this one. A reliance on the run for both teams will keep this one much lower scoring than most anticipate. Additionally, SMU has hit the under in 9 of their last 12 games overall, as well as in 4 of their last 6 games at home. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started.